Good evening. I'd like to welcome everybody to the Planning and Zoning meeting of Milford, October 17th. If we could please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance and a moment of silence. And Meg, if you could please call the roll.
I don't see Ms. Austin. Mr. Cassignoli?
Here.
Mr. Hirsch?
Here.
Mr. Cater?
Present.
Mr. Collegian?
Present.
Mr. Mortimer is excused. Mr. Sadi?
Here.
Mr. Zaharidis?
Present.
And Chairman Quish.
I'm also here. First thing is that there are two things that are postponed tonight. One is 147, 155 Broad Street, and actually a couple things. The Shell Avenue is not on tonight's agenda, and 695 West Avenue is also postponed. One thing I'd like to, little housekeeping with Shell Avenue. We are awaiting a safety study, and I'd like to hear a motion to notice that as a public hearing so the public can comment on the information in the report that we get.
Mr. Quish, I make a motion to have 25 Shell Avenue, when it is heard, if it's on November 8th or any subsequent date, be a public hearing.
Thank you. We have a motion. Do we have a second?
I second.
We have a motion, a second. Mr. Cater. Any discussion on the motion? Mr. Hirsch.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, when do we anticipate the review being finalized?
I think it'll be just before the next meeting, or the meeting that is scheduled within probably just a day. We'll have a draft, I think, 4 or 5 days before that, but I don't think we'll have it finalized until just the day before.
So if we get it the day before, how are we going to have time to evaluate it? Especially because the day before is Election Day.
Yeah, I think that we can read it, we can discuss it. We do not have to close the public hearing at that meeting. We could, if you feel you need more time, or anyone else does, we could still keep it open.
Thank you.
Any other discussion on the motion? Seeing none, Meg, would you call the roll?
I just did.
What?
I just did.
No, but he had a, yeah.
I'm sorry.
For the vote. Yeah.
Sorry. My mistake. Mr. Cassignoli?
Yes.
Mr. Hirsch?
Yes.
Mr. Cater?
Yes.
Mr. Collegian?
With the motion.
Mr. Sadi?
With the motion.
Mr. Zaharidis?
With the motion.
And Chairman Quish.
I'm also with the motion. Thank you. Next order of business is, actually we have another one. Seaview Avenue is postponed. Next order of business is,
One.
yeah, that's postponed. That's a lot of postponements here, getting myself confused. Next is a public hearing, 242 Buckingham Avenue. Zone C.
Mr. Chair?
Yeah.
1 Tudor Road is not postponed.
Oh, right in front of me. Thank you. 1 Tudor Road, AKA 0 Old Point Road, Zone R75, referral pursuant to CGS Section 824 to approve a lease agreement between the Boys and Girls Club of Milford and the City of Milford on map 015, block 107, parcel 85A, of which the City of Milford is the owner. We have someone here representing the city. Please state your name and address for the record.
Good evening. My name is Richard Smith, 59 6th Avenue in Milford. I'm here and excited to announce that we reached an agreement with Boys and Girls Club and finalize the terms of our proposed lease. You folks may remember just about 2.5 years ago when we bought the building, it was shared with you that the plan was to likely lease it to Boys and Girls Club. Give you a little bit of the terms of the lease. It is about 23,900 square feet for the building, and part of the lease will also include the parking area and the playground, which I think Boys and Girls Club may, in the future, come before you to make some changes and move those. The use will be for the Boys and Girls Club operation, administration of club center programs and events. I know I've had the opportunity to spend some time down there, and I can't tell you how impressed I am with what the Boys and Girls Club does for our children, for our community. So I'm very excited about this partnership with the city. The city will maintain what we call a teacher's room, a small classroom size room in the building. We'll also have access to the gymnasium, which we will schedule through the Boys and Girls Club. So we'll have access to that. The terms of the lease is 30 years with 3 10-year extensions that both parties would have to agree to. So it's 30 years and then mutually agreed upon 10-year allocations after that. Boys and Girls Club will be responsible for all the utilities and minor repairs, the maintenance and so forth. They will not be able to assign the lease. We will remove the trash for the first year, and the parties will discuss trash removal thereafter. The Boys and Girls Club will be responsible for mowing, plowing, landscaping the property. The city will be responsible for any maintenance on the remainder of the parcel because it's 10 acres in total, so the lease does not encompass all 10 acres, 9.8, just the building, the playground, and the parking lot. All improvements that the Boys and Girls Club may bring to the building will be owned by the city, and the rent will be $1 a year. So if there are any questions, I think it's a great addition. It's a great use of that property, and Boys and Girls Club is a real asset to our community. So,
Are there any questions or comments from the board? Mr. Sadi?
Thank you, through you, Mr. Chairman, to Mayor Smith. What's happening to the police academy that's not presently located in that building? Is that being moved out?
no, that's actually across the street in the old Simon Lake building. That will remain there. The Boys and Girls Club are presently in that building, and when this is completed, they will move over. This is the old St. Gabriel's Elementary School.
Okay, thank
Yeah.
you very much.
You bet.
Any other questions or comments from the board? Seeing none, I'd hear a motion.
Mr. Quish, I move to approve as presented referral pursuant to CGS 824 to approve a lease agreement between the Boys and Girls Club of Milford, Inc. and the City of Milford on map 015, block 107, parcel 85, of which the City of Milford is the owner, designated as 1 Tudor Road, also known as 0 Old Point Road.
Second.
We have a motion, we have a second. Joe Castagnoli. Any discussion of the motion? Seeing none, Meg, if we'd call the roll.
Mr. Castagnoli?
Yes.
Mr. Hirsch?
Yes.
Mr. Cater?
Yes.
Mr. Collegian?
With the motion.
Mr. Sadi?
With the motion,
Mr. Zaharidis?
With the motion.
And Chairman Quish.
I'm also with the motion. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next order of business is 242 Buckingham Avenue, Zone CDD4, petition of Molly Rental LLC for a special permit to construct a 20 dwelling unit residential complex on map 55, block 545, parcel 6 of which Tom Hayes is the owner. The applicant has the floor.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman. Just for the record, Thomas Lynch. If I could ask the board's indulgence on this application, Ron Wasmer from Connecticut Civil Group is accompanying me and was going to go through the site plan. He's here, okay. I was going to ask to pass it and go on to the next one, 783 East Broadway. Because of the technical problem, Ron had to go back to his office and get good old paper plans, and I have these. Yeah, all right, okay.
Just a question. The first paragraph in the CDD4 says that multifamily residential has to comply with 830G. Why is this application not presented as an 830G application?
Well, I hate to say you're incorrect, but you're incorrect. Section 1 of that zoning regulation says there is the ability to apply for a residential multifamily complex in the zone as long as you set aside 30% of the units with tenants who have the income at the affordable standard. That's where you have a situation where there's at least an acre of land. You can have larger density, smaller units. We are not applying under Section 1, we're applying under Section 2. So if you read Section 2 of that regulation, it provides for applications for multifamily as we're presenting to you tonight.
Yeah, that's kind of where we disagree. I mean, I read them both this afternoon too, and I believe that the first section is overriding, and the second section just allows for some variations in the size of the units and the parking.
No, incorrect. With all due respect, there's two standards to apply for a residential multifamily complex in this zone. So there's two separate regulations, and we are choosing to apply under the second regulation. We don't have an acre of land, which is a requirement under Section 1 of the regulation. And also, if we were going to present an 830G, we would present an 830G under the statutory standards, which would allow for many more units as to what we're proposing here. So I may ask you to defer to your city planner. Maybe he can weigh in on it, but that's...
Oh, you had question asked, question answered. Again, if I disagree, but you're welcome to go ahead with your presentation.
Good evening, Ronald Wasmer, professional engineer, land surveyor. I'm going to pass out an abbreviated set of plans. I ran back to the office. My recollection is that around 2017, 2018, Kevin Kersaden amended the regulation for Section 319.22. And with that amendment, the proposal for a similar application was built on New Haven Avenue.
Right down the street.
Close to Twin Light Auto over there. And then recently, we've just completed construction on an application at 690 New Haven Avenue that was proposed in 2019, and construction was completed. Again, under the regulations of 319.22, 6 or more units, dwelling units, and neither of those are affordable applications.
Understood. Again, I read it differently, and we'll let you do your thing, and we'll do ours.
Okay. Do you want to get these or do you need it? Do you want to pass those out? Okay. Yes. All right, Mr. Chairman, if I can commence the presentation. Again, for the record, Thomas Lynch, my office is located here in Milford at 63 Cherry Street. I'm with the law firm Lynch, Trembicki, and Boynton. And I'm here tonight with my client, Buddy Field, who actually was the developer of the project that Ron just talked about, that this board approved 2 years ago further down the street on New Haven Avenue. Those are the apartments that are being built next to Dogtown, the takeout hot dog place, lack of a better term. That's where that complex is located. It was approved under the same application, all right? So this is an application for a special permit and site plan approval to construct a 20-unit multifamily residential development on the site. I'm going to turn things over to Ron. He's going to go through the specifics of the site plan. But this property is a little under an acre in size. It's been owned by the Hayes family for many years. Tom Hayes has a successful excavation business here in Milford. As the chair just mentioned, it's in zone CDD4. It's the transition commercial zone from downtown leading out to Woodmont. It's an area with many, many uses: retail, restaurants, numerous multifamily developments. Right across the street from this site is the Patch and Muse condominiums right on the corner of Buckingham and New Haven Avenue. So it is a transitional area from the MCDD zone leading out to Woodmont with, as I said, many different uses. And it's sort of, I'm going to conclude at the end of my presentation to you a recitation from the Plan of Conservation and Development, but infill residential multifamily housing is actually encouraged in this area, and this board has seen fit to approve other applications similar to this to be brought before you. Now, if you have the site plan on your computers or if you've gotten printouts of them, the existing condition right now on the site is a house with a garage behind it, and then further at the back end of the property, further back from Buckingham, is a warehouse where Tom Hayes had his construction equipment, and also another garage there. All of those structures on site are going to be torn down, and the SP1 plan is the proposed site plan showing you what's going to be built on the project. There's going to be 7 buildings on site. There's going to be 6 buildings with 3 units each. Greg Grew was the architect on this project. He's designed numerous other projects that you've seen around town with the style of 3 units with the garages underneath and 2 levels of living space above. The first floor is going to have an open floor plan with kitchen and dining living area. The second floor will have a bedroom, a den, and a full bath with another half bath on the first floor and a full garage underneath. The site is also cognizant of the recent changes to our zoning regulations in terms of electric charging stations for cars. Ron's going to, again, go into the site plan in more detail, but those are provided on site, as well as mailboxes, a community mailbox at the entrance. There will not be a dumpster or dumpster enclosure on the site. As in other projects that we brought before you, there's going to be private garbage pickup, individual recycling, and garbage containers for each unit. David has reviewed this. He'll speak at the end in terms of the fact that this project is presented to you is zoning compliant. It meets all the setback, lot coverage, building coverage regulations as provided in that zone. And also, all city departments have reviewed the plans. I won't go through reading each individual one to you, but the city engineer approved the plans in a memo to you on July 10th. The fire department approved the plans back in June 2nd. The sewer commission granted an administrative approval for the project back on June 30th. Mary Rose Palumbo, our inland wetlands officer, issued a memo saying that there's no impact of the wetlands, no necessity for a wetlands application with the work as proposed. And then lastly, there's a report from Sergeant Craniac, the head of the traffic division of the police report. He cites the report that you'll be hearing shortly from Kermit Hua, our traffic engineer, who we retained to provide a report to you regarding the impact of traffic from this project to the affected streets, Buckingham Avenue and New Haven Avenue. So that's it. I wish we had our screen working because it's a little easier to make a presentation and have David scroll through the pages. But Ron's going to go through the site plan, and then Kermit will go through his traffic report. And at the conclusion, I'll have some comments to make to you and answer any questions you may have. Thanks.
Thank you.
Good evening again. For the record, Ronald Wasmer, professional engineer, land surveyor with an office at 158 Research Drive. Here representing Molly Rentals, LLC, to present plans for a site plan application located at 242 Buckingham Avenue. Tom covered pretty much everything I'm going to say, but I'll just briefly walk you through this. Again, it's unfortunate that the screens didn't work, but if you can refer to the abbreviated set of plans that I just handed out. Site plan SP1 is the top page. That indicates the location of the property. It's on Buckingham Avenue at the intersection of New Haven Avenue. It's a relatively long, narrow property. We're proposing 7 buildings, 3 townhouses per building. 1 building is 2 townhouses per building for a total of 21 bedroom apartments. The proposal conforms to the zoning requirements of CDD4 zone section 31922. The required parking is 40 spaces. We've provided 42 spaces. We have 4 electric vehicle charging stations. That's a relative new portion of your regulations. The next page that I did give you copies of is the landscaping plan. Landscaping provided as required by the landscaping regulations. There are street trees along Buckingham Avenue, as well as shade trees and flowering trees adjacent to the parking areas. There's ornamental shrubs proposed along the streetscape and throughout the site. Landscape screening is proposed around utilities where appropriate. We're proposing a stockade fence around the perimeter of the parcel. I did not copy the grading, drainage, and utility plans. They're relatively straightforward. The site is flat. The soils are well drained. Storm drainage is proposed. That system was designed by me and reviewed by the city engineer of Milford. Utilities, the development will be served by public water and sewer. Electric and communication lines will be installed underground. The plan set includes a sedimentation and erosion control plan. There's an illumination plan in the full set. The site lights proposed are a maximum of 15.5 feet tall with LED downward lighting. The illumination plan conforms to the city regulations. Tom mentioned the existing conditions. There's a residential building and a site contractor's building in the rear. I copied 2 pages of the architecture. The buildings are relatively similar. Sheet A01 is a typical 3-unit building. There's a garage on the first floor, a foyer leading up to the living space on the second floor, and a utility room again on the first floor. The second floor is a dining living room area and a kitchen. The third floor is the bedroom and a study. The next page in this plans that I handed out is sheet A202. This is typical elevation view of the buildings. They're all similar in nature. You can notice the building height is approximately 32 feet tall, which meets the regulations. There are 3 stories. The front elevation and the street elevation are accented by simulated stone veneer. The upper floors are sided with various neutral colors: granite gray, charcoal gray, wicker, desert tan, and cypress. In summary, the proposed development conforms to the CDD4 zoning regulations. The plans received a favorable review by the Department of Permitting and Land Use, the city planner, the police department, the police commission, the fire marshal, the city engineer. There are no wetlands on or near the proposed development, and the parcel is not in a flood zone. That concludes my portion of the application.
Thank you. One question for you.
Sure.
You talked about the parking, and what would the parking requirement be if these were all 2-bedroom units?
I believe that's 3 spaces per unit. Is that correct, David? Or 2.5?
Maybe about 2.5.
Okay.
I'd have to double check.
I don't have.
Okay, thank you.
I don't have that memorized, sorry.
That's okay, I didn't either. That's why I asked.
I'll be available for any other questions after the presentation.
Any other questions from members of the board at this point? Yes, Mark?
You said, I'm looking at the plans here, do parking spaces include parking in the garage?
Yes. There's 1 space in the garage and then 22 surface parking spaces for a
So
total,
okay, I
for a
see,
total of 42.
okay. And I see these 3 spaces that are parked behind other cars on the building to the far end of the property.
Yes.
Whose parking spaces are those?
Those would be to that unit, typically.
So only the people in those units can park in those parking spaces?
Yeah, it's a similar layout that we've proposed in quite a few townhouse developments.
And those 3 spots count towards the requirement needed?
Yes, they do.
So another guest or somebody else couldn't park in those spaces?
I would say that would be inappropriate, yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Mr. Hirsch?
I have a question. Is this a heavily traveled area?
Buckingham Avenue is
Yeah.
a one-way street, so I would not say it's a heavily traveled area. New Haven Avenue is a busy street.
My question is this is on the corner of Buckingham and New Haven Avenue?
Yes.
All right. So if people are going to enter this premises, from where would they enter these premises?
They would have to enter from Buckingham Avenue, so you would, if you were coming from the center of town, you would turn on High Street?
Mhm.
No, I'm sorry. Not Cherry.
Cherry or
Street.
Gulf Street?
You would turn on Gulf Street, travel towards the train tracks, take a right onto Buckingham Avenue, which is one way. If you were coming from the eastern side of Milford, you would have to travel past the property on New Haven Avenue, turn right onto Gulf Street, right onto Buckingham Avenue.
And how many entrances are there and how many exits are there?
There's one entrance,
And one exit?
one exit, the same.
It's the same, it's probably 20 feet wide? All
Yes.
right, so one car can get in and another car can get out at the same time?
Yeah, it's wide, and it's 22 feet wide. It's wide enough for, it's 24 feet wide, excuse me, wide enough for 2 cars to pass.
Thank you.
Any further questions at this time? Okay, thank you.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the Commission. For the record, Kermit Hua, KWH Enterprise LLC, with the address at 277 Reservoir Avenue, Unit 1101, Meriden, Connecticut. I'm the traffic engineer on this project. I will just briefly go over the report and the findings. I probably take 5-6 minutes. Should be quick. The first thing I did is I collected traffic counts during the busiest weekday morning and weekday afternoon peak hours for a total of 4 hours in April 2023. And I then ran the traffic analysis analyzing the operation of the main adjacent intersection of Buckingham Avenue and New Haven Avenue during the weekday morning and weekday afternoon peak hours. These 20 units will generate a total of 8 trips for the morning peak hour and 10 trips for the afternoon peak hour. The reason is not everyone's trip coincide exactly with the peaks of the streets. In this case, primarily the peaks of New Haven Avenue, because that's the main thoroughfare in this area. Commissioner Hirsch touched on the sort of a unique circulation pattern for this development because Buckingham Avenue is one way, so everyone have to, I think, go to the intersection of Gulf Street and Buckingham, then enter and then enter the site, and everyone exit at the intersection of Buckingham Avenue and New Haven Avenue. So the result of the analysis is, just in terms of the operation at a driveway on Buckingham, we don't see a lot of issues. Very short delays, level of service A and B, A or B for traffic to exit. Sometimes I know it because it's pretty close to the stop bar of the intersection. The queue on Buckingham, may block the driveway. You wait for those queue to dissipate. When it is the turn of Buckingham Avenue to use when they have the green signal. We did observe and analyze show there are some delays for the intersection, especially during the afternoon peak hour, specifically for traffic going westbound on New Haven and also northbound. Also, the opposite street is also called Buckingham Avenue, away from the beach. But just overall, the incremental contribution of these 20 units in terms of increasing in additional delay to the intersection is minimal. We are increasing intersection level delay by 0.1 second during the morning peak hour and 0.6 second during the afternoon peak hour. So overall, the net impact of these 20 units is not significant. And also, I reviewed the sight lines of the driveway, because this is one-way street, Buckingham Avenue. You only need to looking to the right, make sure, we do have sufficient sight line for this single driveway. So overall, I don't see any major impact in terms of traffic contributions, and that's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Just to be clear, if there are 40 cars parked,
Yes.
You anticipate only 8 will leave in the peak morning?
40
Or did you say 18?
No, actually 8 in the morning and 10 in the afternoon during 1 hour of the peak of the streets. Now, you have probably a little bit over 40 spaces, but not necessarily 40 cars, right?
Well, you could have more, and people parking somewhere else and, needing more spaces.
I
But,
agree, but
yeah.
maybe during holidays and people visit, but in a typical weekday, so work weekday, and usually not necessarily every space is occupied. I don't know, at least that's my experience in my area. In Meriden, probably Milford is different. But overall, the sources of these trip generation is not Milford specific or Kinetic specific. It is national sort of average data. That's my source.
Right, and you feel it's reasonable to think that out of 40 cars, there'll be 32 that don't need to go anywhere?
First, I will say probably, during a typical day, there are fewer than 40 cars exit in the morning or return in the afternoon. At least that's my opinion. I know, Chairman, you may disagree, but
Thank you.
thank you.
Any other questions? Etan?
So I understand correctly, you are an expert in traffic
Yes.
patterns and traffic studies?
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
Let's say this was built right now, and I lived in apartment, say 5. How would I get to the parking space of my apartment from this location? Let's say I park right outside, how would you drive to get to this location?
I just only looked at I don't live in Milford, so I'm not familiar with the overall the city configuration. I just looked at the map. Probably the only intersection is Gulf Street and Buckingham Avenue. Everyone probably have to go through that.
Well, I asked a very simple question because New Haven Avenue is right over there behind you.
Right.
So again, I'm going to ask you again, you're a traffic expert.
Right.
How would I park if I lived here? How would I get to my parking space from this location where we are right now?
I don't know. Is there any intersection of New Haven Avenue and the Gulf Street? There should be one.
It's straight down New Haven Avenue, so how do I do it?
Right. And the New Haven Avenue, I think, again, I don't live in Milford. So.
But you know how to get to New Haven Avenue, right? It's right down over there.
Okay.
Okay, so you're driving down New Haven Avenue and we're going towards New Haven.
Right.
Okay, and at some point you're going to have to turn into some driveway off New Haven Avenue to where Buckingham is. How do you do it?
To Gulf Street.
I'm sorry, Eton, actually, you go to Gulf Street.
I'm asking him.
I know that, but he may not know the roads. He analyzed the intersection. We go down to Gulf Street, take a left, then take a right on Buckingham. And he may be an expert in amount of traffic. He may not very well know this particular location.
I'm asking a traffic expert how he would navigate to get to the parking space.
Right.
Well, you should give him a map then.
That's fine, Mr. Thank you, Mr. Kush. I think that's a good question. I think ultimately, like I said, everyone has to use Buckingham Avenue, a one-way street, to access the driveway. So they have to go eastbound on Buckingham. As far as I know, the nearest intersection on Buckingham with major street is Buckingham and Gulf Street. So somehow you have to get onto Gulf Street, then turn onto Buckingham. Thank you.
I have a follow-up question. Can you turn left from New Haven Avenue into the parking lot?
No.
But if you weren't familiar with the area, would that potentially be an issue?
Well, the intersection is configured as such. Buckingham Avenue approach the intersection as a one-way street. I don't remember exactly whether there are, no entry signs or not. Probably there are, but at this time I'm not sure. But it is configured as such, unless there's an existing traffic pattern or traffic concern, by the police department of people traveling on the wrong way. But I don't see any evidence of that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any further questions from the board?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just for concluding, I do live in Milford. I've lived in Milford my whole life. There's a traffic signal on New Haven Avenue at Buckingham, and there is a do not enter sign on Buckingham. So if somebody came to that traffic light and took a right, they'd either get in an accident or get a ticket, all right? And the chairman brought up at the start of my presentation a comment. I know we went back and forth, but I have a record that I need to establish, so please bear with me. Under Section 319.2 of our zoning regulations, there are 18 different special uses that one can apply for if they want to build something or develop something in the CDD4 zone. They're all enumerated. Section 319.2.1 is what the chairman referred to at the start. You can put a dense project on this property. You have to have a minimum of 1 acre. The square footage measurement determining the number of units is much greater than Section 2. If we were applying under Section 1, it's 1 bedroom per 1,000 square feet. There's 39,000 square feet. We could be before you with an application for 39 units. We're not. We're before you with an application for 20 units. We have applied under the second section, 319.2.2, which provides for a less dense project. It doesn't require an acre. It requires a minimum size of 7,500 square feet. And that's the section that we've applied for. Other than that, there's 16 other different things that we could apply for if we wanted to, okay? We could come before you with an application for a boarding house or a club, a church, a park, a playground, mixed-use buildings. There's 16 different things that we could come before you to apply for, to develop property in this zone. So there is, to answer Mr. Quish's point, and, I understand where he was coming from, but we haven't applied for a project under Section 1. We've applied for a project under Section 2. We stand by it. You're going to hear from Mr. Sulkus very shortly in terms of whether this project is zoning compliant. It is, meets all the standards of the zone. It also meets the standards for, as I mentioned at the start, the plan of conservation and development for the corridor district, for infill residential development to complement restaurants, stores, offices in that zone. That's what creates a vibrant area, and the apartments that have been built downtown have contributed to the vibrancy of downtown Milford, and this is another project that my client wants to build and keep that process going. So with that, we conclude our presentation to you, and if there's any other questions, we'd be happy to answer them.
Mr. Savvy.
Thank you very much. Through the chair to you, Attorney Lynch, good evening.
Good evening.
We were able to pull up the regulations in 319.2, and I didn't hear in your presentation, but one of the requirements in 319.2, 2.3, 25% to 60% lot coverage. I know that Mr. Wasserman did a good presentation, but I don't see in the paperwork if you do have the coverage that it's in that 25 to 60%.
Yes, it's on SP1, Bob. It's
Okay.
on the site plan. He has a zoning chart and a zoning table on the side, and if you go to that, and again, if it was up there, it would be a heck of a lot easier to follow. It's on SP1, the site plan, the zoning page shows that we meet the standards for lot and building coverage. Ron's standing behind me. He knows the numbers by heart, so I'm going to let him tell you what the numbers are.
That your answer is fine. I thank you. It just was,
Okay.
as you said, you would have the material up there. We're going through our computers and tablets to find it. And could you explain, just again, a quick summary why you differ with the chair's Section 1 versus Section 2?
Because you can apply for a residential multifamily development in this zone two ways. You can do a dense one, as long as you put aside 30% of the units. It's the same theory behind Section 830G of our statutes. It's designed to encourage people to develop properties in a more dense manner, as long as they set aside a certain number of the units, 30% of the units, to those who meet the affordable rent standard. We've chosen not to do that.
And
Plus, we
that's the
can't do it
Section
because
2?
we don't, if I can finish.
I'm sorry.
Plus, we can't do it because we don't have an acre. And a minimum of 1 acre is required in the zone to develop under Section 1.
And that's the 40,000 square feet?
Correct.
Okay. And then on subsection 2, your analysis is because you have less than the acre, that's where the difference occurs?
That's one of them.
Okay.
That's one of them. It also provides for larger units. Under Section 1, you can have one-bedroom units of 900 feet. I think under Section 2, it's 1,000.
Yeah.
So there's different standards. It's comparing apples and oranges. And, I could look at Jim and disagree with him all night, but it is what it is.
I appreciate it, and thank you very much for the analysis. And the last question I have for you, and again, I didn't hear it in the presentation, but there was a fire department summary, something dealing with the EV charging stations.
Yes, they have specific standards for bringing the wiring out to those stations. So again, that is going to be something that Mr. Griffith's going to look at as part of the application for the building permit. And all we're bringing to you tonight is a site plan and a special permit application that has been signed off by the fire marshal, subject to those conditions.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
No further questions, Chairman Question.
Okay, good.
Good evening, Chairman, again, Ronald Wiseman. Just one comment regarding the 830G portion of this, and I don't purport to be an attorney versed that well in the statutes, but I've sat through enough of these and presented enough plans that I'm just going to make a casual comment that 830G usurps all the zoning regulations. So we could come in here hypothetically for 50 units and 10 parking spaces and a 10-story building, and that 830G usurps all these. This application is not submitted as an 830G. It conforms to the regulations set aside in CDD4, which has a minimum area per unit. We don't exceed the area per unit. We're not proposing more units than what would be allowed within the regulation. So if that helps understand the difference between the 830G and then the section that we're submitting. Thank you.
Thank you.
And again, not to beat a dead horse, but Section 1 isn't 830G. 830G, as Ron just said, usurps all zoning regulations. There are standards in Section 1 for lot coverage. There are standards in Section 1 for building coverage. There are standards in Section 1 for number of units per square footage of the land itself. 830G, you don't have any of that. So it makes reference to 830G only in the sense that you can come in with an application and meet the standards of Section 1 as long as you set aside 30% of the units to those who meet the 830G income standards. So again, I think I've said enough.
Okay. And any further questions from the board at this point? David, would you care to? Oh, Eitan.
Again, not to beat the dead horse, let it die. So this application, the legal basis for your client's application, Attorney Lynch, is 3.19.2.2, correct? And nothing else, no other provision, just that, for the record, just that sole provision.
That's correct. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Any further questions at this point? Mr. Sakos, would you care to share your thoughts?
Sure. The applicant is applying for a 20-unit dwelling complex by special permit with site plan review under Section 319.2.2. All 20 units are townhouse style with ground level garage, second level living, dining, and kitchen area, and third level bedroom with loft study area. 2 parking spaces are required for each dwelling unit for a minimum requirement of 40 spaces. 42 spaces are provided. 4 spaces will have EV charging stations as required by Section 5.1.10.9. Building coverage, lot coverage, building height, and setbacks are zoning compliant. Open space as defined of 17,500 square feet is provided on the site plan where 8,000 square feet is required. The applicant should not be counting the 5-foot buffer area around the buildings as required by 5.14.6 subsection 8. Buffer areas and open spaces have different definitions within our regulations. Even if that 5-foot area around the buildings is removed from the plan is still compliant because they have so many square feet. And also, let me just move this down here. The fire department requires bollards to protect the EV charging stations. This will be required when seeking a building permit. The application is substantially zoning compliant.
Thank you. One thing I'd like to ask about is, having seen numerous applications come through with a bedroom and a study, or library, whatever you want to call it, then subsequently see those same units advertised as 2-bedroom units. What would the calculation be for the amount of units you could have, the amount of parking you would require if we looked at this as 2 bedrooms in each of these units?
Well, that's a hypothetical. I mean, we could come up with the calculation, but I stand by the fact that these are 1-bedroom units. They do have a den for many of the residents in these apartments use them for home offices. So that anecdotally, you're talking about these apartments being built and then advertised as 2-bedroom. I don't know how to respond to that. we can do a calculation to say how many units we could come up with if they were 2 bedrooms, but I dispute that. We're not applying for 2 bedrooms.
All right, thank you. Question asked, question answered. Any further questions or comments? Mr. Hirsch?
Mr. Quish, can you elaborate a little more? These are going to be advertised as 1-bedroom units. Your concern is their marketing, how they're going to market these, or are you concerned at how the tenants are going to use these properties, or both?
Well, I think that it will impact the use if in fact they are used as 2 bedrooms. There'll be more potential parking needs, more potential traffic, and it will, I don't know, it just obviously changes the zone allows for a certain number of units and bedrooms per 1,000 square feet or 2,000 square feet. So there would be fewer units if they were calculated with the 2,000. I mean, with the 2 bedrooms in each.
I just want to state for the record that Mr. Field has some 75 1-bedroom units across Milford, and he has never advertised a 1-bedroom unit as being a 2-bedroom unit, just for the record.
Good citizen. Again, I disagree with the reading, and I know we built a lot of units. With that reading, I think the language is a little bit confusing in that my reading is that you need 830G. I would like to get the city attorney's perspective on it prior to moving this forward to a vote or to a motion, so that's just my feeling. If somebody wants to go ahead and make that motion, then we'll entertain it and we'll discuss it and we'll vote on it. I would prefer to give it to the city attorney for his opinion.
Mr. Chairman.
Can I respond to that just briefly?
Sure.
So you would ask the city attorney for an opinion as to what we've applied for?
No.
We've applied, it's specifically
just the
what we've
reading
applied
of just the reading of whether or not the apartments are required to be 830G compliant, not with 830G, just as the language just says that you have to have 30% that meet the deed restriction.
But Jim, in section 2 of the regulation, it doesn't say anything.
I understand that.
Mr. Chairman,
That's what we applied for.
Dave, Mr. Sulkus has already said this is zoning compliant.
Well, as I said, if you'd like to make a motion, then we'll go through the motion. That's
Well,
fine.
I will make the motion.
That's fine.
No, what? Let me make the motion.
If I may step in for a minute.
You can still ask questions after the motion.
Well, this is a public hearing. We need to have the public be heard first before we get into closing the public hearing. I submit we do that. Then we can get any motion we want, but I think we have to follow the normal process. Thanks.
Are there any more questions that you want to direct to the presenters before?
Not right now, no.
Okay.
I stand corrected. I got distracted with the public hearing aspect. So without further ado, we'll open up the public hearing. If anyone would like to speak to the issue, please come up, state your name and address, and try to keep your comments to about 3 minutes.
Good evening, Donna Dutko, 236 Buckingham Avenue. I live right next to this potential project. It's a beautiful project. Molly Rentals, they do fantastic work. Their buildings look lovely. But newsflash, work from home has become the new trend. I've been in corporate America for 40 years. I work from home. I don't get in my car. And I work for a stodgy company, but now I don't commute to New York anymore. And like I said, I go out maybe at night to go shopping or something, but I'm not leaving my house. That's the trend. And I posted I sent 2 articles to the zoning office that speaks to these new trends and the benefits to corporations when they don't have employees coming into the office. They're downsizing, they're reducing their footprint. People are getting up in the morning and going to their computers in their office, in their home. So, that's what I do. I have an office set aside for me, kind of like their study that they have, and I have to have a separate office. I don't want to be working in my bedroom. So I go into my office, I'm a professional, I do logistics, I've been in supply chain my entire career, and I'm able to function fully in a private office in my home without leaving my house. So if you get a chance, please read these articles they talk about, and what Molly Rentals is promoting here is the work from home environment, because now you've got people that are no longer gonna move out of their house in the morning. They're not gonna get in their cars and go. Corporate America, if you like, let me see. I'll read you the benefits to corporations. Benefits for employers, and I'm telling you, if I told you who I work for, you'd be like, oh my God. All of us, not a single person is required to go into our office. And so our companies save on rent, utilities, building maintenance, cleaning, equipment, furniture. I have my own furniture. My company provides me with my laptop and printer and that kind of thing. But, I'm a fully functioning manager in my corporation, and I'm working out of my house. So that's my point, and I think that these guys do a great job. They do beautiful work, and they really, I think you should approve this
Thank you.
application. You're welcome.
Is there anyone else that would like to speak? Would you like to rebut that? Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing, and if there's no further questions, we'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I move to approve as presented the petition of Molly Rentals LLC for a special permit to construct 20 dwelling unit residential complex on map 55, block 545, parcel 6, of which Tom Hayes is the owner.
We have a motion. Do we have a second? Brian, any further discussion on the motion? Seeing none, Meg, would you please call the roll?
Mr. Castiglione?
Yes.
Mr. Hirsch?
Against the motion.
Mr. Cater?
With the motion.
Mr. Collegian?
I'm with the motion.
Mr. Sadi?
With the motion.
Mr. Zaharidis?
Against the motion.
And Chairman Quish.
I am against the motion.
The motion passes 4-3.
Motion passes. Congratulations and good luck. Next order of business is 783 East Broadway, Zone R5, petition of Thomas Lynch Esquire for coastal area site plan review to construct a single-family dwelling on map 27, block 474, parcel 35, of which Julie M. Porzio is the owner. The applicant has the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Again, for the record on this application, Thomas Lynch, my office is located here in Milford, 63 Cherry Street. I'm here with my clients, Julie Porzio and her husband, Joe. They're the owners of the property at 783 East Broadway, and we're before you with an application for site plan review and a special permit under the Coastal Area Management Act to allow them to construct a new home on the property. So this past summer, I appeared before the Zoning Board of Appeals with Julie and Joe. We received side yard variances of a minor nature to sort of reposition the house. The prior house, which has since been demolished, was built back in the 30s. It was a small beach cottage, approximately 1,200 square feet with 3 bedrooms. Property is located in the R5 zone. So there were non-conforming setbacks on one side of the prior house. Now with the variances that were received, the house was sort of centered a little bit more in the lot, and it created two non-conforming setbacks. The Zoning Board of Appeals granted the variances back in July. So Joe Rousseau has put together a beautiful home here. It's 3 levels of living space over a first floor garage area. The plans have been given to you. Again, I'd love to have David scroll through them. You can look at them. I hope you have them on your computers or if you have the paper copies. But it's, again, 3 levels. I think David's administrative summary recites that the house is 4,600 square feet. It is not. It's 3,600 square feet. I don't know if that was a typo. There's 3 levels of living space. The house measures 19 by 60 feet, so it comes to roughly 3,420 square feet of living space. There is going to be an elevator to service the house. Typical with the new homes that have been built along East Broadway, it's the elevated style to meet the FEMA requirements with the garage underneath. It's an open floor plan on the first floor with a very large kitchen, dining area, and living room looking beautiful view out to Long Island Sound with a deck. The second floor is going to have 3 bedrooms. There's a third floor that's going to be a master suite where the master bedroom is, again with decks looking out to the rear. The plans were reviewed by Steve Harris, found to be zoning compliant in all natures. The house, the midpoint of the peak measures 34.6 feet, which meets the standard of 35 feet that we have. The finished first floor, again, these plans have all been reviewed by the zoning office and the city engineer before we get here, so I assume that you know that they've gotten the evil eye, even to the extent that the Department of Energy and Environmental Protection got involved today because the plans were sent to John Goucher, and I spent most of my day today with Joe Codispoti of Codispoti Associates, with Joe Rousseau, and on the phone with John Goucher, revising the plans because he wanted to see the extent of the beach on the lot. He wanted to see the slab meeting the FEMA standards with the floating pier and the detached piers and the floating slab. So all those plans were revised. I assume that you got copies of the emails that came in late this afternoon, but literally at 4 o'clock, John Goucher sent David an email saying that he's reviewed the revised plans and they meet all standards of the department. So with that said, my clients have their foundation contractor lined up, ready to go, and I'd ask that you approve this application. Thanks.
Thank you. Any questions or comments from the board? Mr. Sadi.
Through the chair to you, Attorney Lynch, thank you very much for the presentation. Some of us did get the revised site plan, and just for my own edification, the slabs and the terms used, are those out close to Long Island Sound, or are they the ones closer to the house?
No, they're the ones closest to the house.
Okay.
Right, yeah.
And how much property goes out from that slab ending to where their high water mark, I imagine, on Long Island Sound would be?
You know, you had to ask, Bob. It's on the site plan, and again, I have my glasses on and I can't really see it even with my glasses. It's blown up. But David, can you blow it up on the computer?
We're talking hundreds of feet probably.
Yeah, East Broadway is very deep. In other words, the high tide line is way behind the house, and the sand goes way out.
So the number of feet doesn't matter. Why was DEEP involved in this, if you know?
Because I was told by Mr. Goucher today that it's practice of the office, the DPLU, to now send the CAM reports up to his office for review.
I appreciate that, and I know Mr. Goucher. Thank you very much. No further questions, Mr. Chairman.
David, could you figure it out?
The linear,
distance from
the distance
from even the deck to the high tide line.
Well, looking at the site plan,
it looks like it's at least the length of the house, so maybe 50 feet.
you have 85 feet between Long Island Sound and the zone line, the VE13 line, and then it looks like you have probably another 40 to 50 feet.
Right, that's why I figured
So-
40 to 50 feet.
Yeah.
Yep.
Any other questions or comments from the board? David, do you care to put your perspective on this?
Well, I can just confirm everything that Mr. Lynch said, and I can read to you the email I got at 3:44 this afternoon from the DEP. David, I have reviewed the revised site plans attached in the attached application addendum that addresses the project's consistency with CCMA beach and dune policies. The revisions have addressed the application's deficiencies raised in my October 12th, 2023 comments. Accordingly, I have no further comments regarding the consistency of the proposal with CCMA policies for the board's consideration. Please let me know if you have any questions. John Goucher.
And that came in at 3:44 this afternoon.
Thank you. Without any further ado, we will open the public hearing. Anyone would like to come and speak to this issue, please come to the podium. Seeing none, would you like to rebut?
All set, thanks.
Okay. We'll close the public hearing, and without any further questions, Mr. Hirsch.
Yeah, I just want to say for the record, I know of Attorney Perzio, but I don't think that will affect my ability to be impartial in this situation.
Great, thank you. Without objection, we'll hear a motion. Mr. Sadi?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Regarding 783 East Broadway, Zone R5, I move to approve as presented the petition of Thomas Lynch Esquire for a coastal area site plan review to construct a single-family dwelling on map 27, block 474, parcel 35, of which Julie M. Porzio is the owner.
Second.
Motion and a second. Without further comment, please call the roll.
Mr. Castagnoli,
Yes.
Mr. Hirsch,
With the motion.
Mr. Cater,
With the motion.
Mr. Collegian,
With the motion.
Mr. Sadi,
With the motion.
Mr. Zaharides,
With the motion.
and Chairman Quinn.
I'm with the motion. Good luck.
All right, thanks so much.
Old business, we have none. Liaison report.
Yes, Mr. Chair, thank you very much. I attended the meeting of the South Central Regional Council of Governments. There was actually one matter that was on that has not come before our board. It's a private application for activity. I abstained from it, but all matters were passed. I imagine it'll come back to us. It appears to be something that was, again, a private citizen. I think it was a zone change they're asking for, but the point is, I did attend the meeting, and they did mention, they had some questions about when the POCD hearing is, because apparently the month before they had dealt with that particular issue, they found there was no need to have no problems with the surrounding towns and cities.
Great, thank you. Subcommittee report. David, it looks like we're going to choose November 2nd to notice the special meeting, public hearing for the POCD.
We've already noticed it. We have a meeting next week.
Did you notice it?
Yes, we did.
Oh, okay, I was told it was not noticed.
That would be incorrect.
Okay, all right, so then,
I'll double check that, but I'm 99% sure.
so as far as you know, what's the date?
It is the 24th.
Okay, October 24th will be the POCD.
Yep.
And then November 2nd, we can have the regulation subcommittee. And that will be remote.
Yeah, and I can confirm that we advertised it. I'm staring at the legal ad that went in. So we're perfectly fine for
Okay.
next week.
And the approval of the minutes. Have a motion? Okay, motion, second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Seeing none, that's approved. Chair's report. I'd like to ask the question, is it technologically possible for us to have hybrid meetings?
Like anything in life, you can engineer anything with enough money. It's possible. We had previously looked at this issue with the former mayor, and there was a cost associated with it, which at that time, that mayor didn't want to.
So is it my understanding that the Board of Aldermen do not have hybrid meetings in Board of Ed?
Not to my knowledge. If they do, that's news to me, and obviously if this board wants that technology and other boards have it, then we'll get it for you. But to my knowledge, we don't have that ability.
Yeah, if you would, please, look into that again, just to make sure that we have the most current information. I know they did some upgrades. So, yeah, you could come on up to the microphone. Thank you. If you would, please inform us.
Yeah, just like Ken Smugal, I work for the Board of Ed IT department. I help with MGAT. But yeah, when we have COVID, we do Zoom meeting with the Zoom on the TV with the camera pointing, and everybody can see both ways.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Okay.
Question.
I appreciate you letting me know.
So you're doing the Zoom meeting, but then you also have people that are live meeting?
Yeah, so they have it set so you can have panelists where they're just viewers, and then you can have people who can actually speak, like someone who would be a remote user who's on the board. They would be able to come in, see everything, see the documentation.
Oh, so when's your room available?
Yeah, no, MGAT, Blessing, we set that up.
Can
Okay.
I just have your name again, please?
Ken Smagala,
Can you spell that?
Smagala, Kenneth.
Thank you.
Yep, no problem.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. So I think that it's a real benefit for people who travel, so that if we would from now on notice meetings that are in person to be hybrid, and then and when it's exclusively like a Zoom meeting for the subcommittees, but other than that, they'll be in person and with the potential of
Yeah, we would have
board
to.
members. Should we consider maybe, yeah, I mean, maybe we should think it through and talk it through a little bit more. Maybe it is the case that applicants have to be here, but members can jump in. I don't know. Etan, what's your thought?
Mr. Chairman, for the and also for the tens of thousands of people watching on TV right now, you are going to have so many people who would ordinarily not take the time to drive, park, and show up here to have comments and just randomly fire at us from a screen. I don't think that's right.
So maybe it's just that it's a live meeting, but the actual elected members are allowed to join by Zoom, but no one else.
I would say that if you want to ask questions to members of the board at a public meeting, and you want to state your opinion, I don't think you should be able to do that through a Zoom. I think you have to come in person to do that.
Any other people, anybody have thoughts on that? Mr. Sadi?
Just so we know what we're doing, the next two meetings we talked about, those are going to be in here. One is going to be Zoom regulation, but the 1024 meeting is going to be in here.
The POCD meeting will be live and in person.
It'll be a special meeting live, POCD, public hearing.
My thinking is that I'd like to think more about it. I understand the benefits of both sides of it. I also recognize our responsibilities to be here in front of the public. So I don't have a position one or the other, but I just think it's something that we can have a conversation. But I don't think we're going to do anything until at least the middle of October, if not later.
Well, it is the middle of October. It's October
I think to the
16th.
middle of November, if not later.
Okay.
So the 8th is the next meeting in November. So that's what I'm thinking, the middle of November before we get there.
That's fair.
And Mr. Chair, we would need, if we go the hybrid route, they have the Board of Ed has a room set up that's special that has that equipment. We would have to get that equipment here. It's not just a regular Zoom thing. So because that's what we had looked at at the end of COVID to do the hybrid. It involved some extra equipment that needed to be in this building for this meeting. So we would have to pursue that. The idea to do it is fine.
Yeah, I mean, again, there's degrees, my main concern is that people that are on the board elected that travel for work have an ability to do what they're elected to do. I'm not that enamored with having random people sit from the bar stool and, or at home, whatever they're doing. I don't know that, I'm all for public engagement, but sometimes it could possibly get out of hand. Ms. Sadi.
Thank you. With permission of the chairman, can I go back to amend my liaison report? There was something I forgot to mention.
Yes, please.
Thank you. As I'm a liaison member on the 25th of October between 12:30 and 3:30, there's going to be a tour of different housing projects in our district. One is going to be in Milford. I have no idea where it's going to be. But I am allowed to go, and if somebody has interest, talk to David. There may be extra space in the bus. I know we're going to Wallingford, New Haven, and Milford.
And then if you're on that bus, when it comes to Milford, I'll be meeting you at the housing complexes to give you a little spiel on each one.
So if Bob shares that, or if you get that from regional, could you share that with the board so they can consider if they want to join in?
Yeah.
Thank you. Mr. Cater.
Just wanted to bring up something. So for the Buckingham Ave, I'm okay with how it went down, but are we concerned about 830G getting out of control? How are we going to control
Jim,
that?
we really can't go into that here. Right now, we can talk about the Zoom, the hybrid meetings. Yeah,
Right.
I'm sorry, just
Okay.
not really appropriate to talk about.
Mr. Chairman, I think that's a legitimate question that he's asking.
Maybe
you want to cover
David,
the Zoom
Well, yeah,
next, but I think that's a fair question for this
Yeah, I could be
forum.
wrong, but I'm kind of concerned about whether it's appropriate. I guess it's not in front of us anymore.
Well, I don't really care about that project. I'm just caring about 830G in general. How are we going to tackle that if we keep approving things that are compliant, which they are, but then we're going to get so far behind it that we're going to have projects shoved down our throats that we don't want? How are we going to deal with that?
Well, one thing I can tell you is that the people that were on the POCD no longer have a committee meetings to go to, and the Regulations Subcommittee is meeting, and you're welcome to join in. It's a Zoom meeting, and on the next agenda, there is going to be that very question, whether we want to consider making every multifamily development include some affordable, and then have a gradated system. So we're going to start looking into that and look at passing our own regulation to help us get out from behind the eight ball. So you're welcome to join, and I would encourage you to join the committee.
Mr. Chair, that's a great idea. Apologize, I should have raised my hand first. I think it's a great idea, Mr. Chair. The issue is I'm not an expert on 830G. I'm not an expert on many things. I think it would be helpful if we had somebody who is well-versed on 830G to guide us through this, maybe from the city's attorney's office or a local lawyer or somebody to assist us, because again, trying to craft legislation, we don't do that every day. And I think there's so many myriad issues and policy considerations. I think just having us 10 do this is not sufficient, in my opinion.
That's a good idea. I think we'll take that under advisement, and maybe we will, have a kind of a work group situation where we have an expert come in and give us some perspective. Good idea, thank you.
Mr. Chair.
Yep.
Is there an appropriate time for us to be able to discuss these things as a group of officials, or are we not allowed to do that? Because I'm confused about it, because I'm glad that Jim brought it up, and I'm glad that Etan is talking about it, because I don't understand. I have questions too.
Yeah, I think that the Regulations Subcommittee is a place where we could talk about this. I also think if any time anyone wants, we could have a Democratic caucus, and we can go into a private room and we can have any conversation we want.
Does that have to be during a regular meeting, or could it be at any time?
I think that it would have to be at a regular meeting, because if we have a quorum, we would have an issue. But we can go into a caucus.
I mean, I would highly recommend that maybe on one of our next meetings, we plan to do just that, so we can have conversations between each other about this.
That's fine. I think it's not a bad idea at all. I think it's a very good idea. Why don't we plan that for the next meeting? Do we have to put it on the agenda that there's going to be a caucus?
You can call it at any time, right, David?
It's very unusual for a planning and zoning board to do that, but my understanding is it can be done, at the meeting. Just for your planning purposes, the next meeting is going to be very busy. You're going to have 25 Shell Avenue returning. You're going to have Broad Street on that agenda as well. So depending on how much time you want to devote to that discussion. Also keep in mind what Jim was discussing, which was the idea of regulation changes and things. The appropriate place to talk about that would be, in the regulation subcommittee.
And it's not restricted to the members of the committee. Other committee members could say, well, I don't want to really be a member, but I want to come to this particular meeting. Is that?
So we would have to, if that's the case, we would have to advertise it as a special meeting, because once you get past the subcommittee, you end up in a quorum situation.
So,
I mean, we can advertise it and then you can do it, but I'm just saying you can't say it's a subcommittee meeting and then have the entire board.
what if everybody joined the subcommittee? Is that always a quorum and has to be a public meeting?
If you have everybody on the subcommittee, it's a formal meeting, and then we'd have to notice it.
But we can do it as a Democratic caucus.
Dave, I still don't understand why we can't caucus during the meeting like the Board of Aldermen does. Don't they caucus and they have a...
You can at any time.
Yeah, I know. I'm not saying you can't.
I could call it, anybody can call it at any time.
I didn't say you couldn't do that. All I'm saying was for the next meeting, because you were talking about doing it at the next meeting, the agenda is going to be rather heavy. So depending on if you think you're going to caucus for 10 minutes or an hour, I mean, it'll be a very long night. That's all I'm saying.
I would say that we would do it at the end of business. Joe, weigh in anytime.
Dave, correct me if I'm wrong, couldn't you just put on the agenda that the planning and zoning board is looking to discuss regulation amendments?
If they want to do that publicly, absolutely.
Yeah, I think it might be more comfortable to, at least at the get-go, to do it in the caucus room. And if we do the caucus at the end of the meeting, if it's midnight, maybe we don't do it, but if it's 8 o'clock, then we go caucus. If it's, I think the concern from David is that it's a heavy day, next meeting.
I don't understand why you can't caucus during the meeting.
Well, you can, but if we have 40 people out there waiting for us to go in there and talk, it would be if we had 40 people waiting out here for us while we go in and caucus, it's a little bit rude to them. If we go for 40 minutes.
And Joe...
All I'm saying is we do it at the end of the meeting when all the business is finished.
And Joe, I'm not saying that you can't caucus. I'm not saying that at all. I'm just saying that if the talk was to do it at the next meeting, it's going to be a busy agenda. That's all I'm saying.
My only suggestion would be if we have a room full of people, that we don't have them sit there wait while we're in the caucus room.
Jim, sometimes when you caucus, people change their votes, and maybe...
No, I understand, but if we think we're just going for kind of a caucus for a blue sky section, I would defer to doing it later, after everybody's business is done, that's all. Eton.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Castagnoli makes a great point. I wonder if we had caucused at 242 Buckingham, we may have had a 4-3 the other way. Do I understand correctly that if we caucus, we cannot vote on the pending matter? I mean, how does it work in terms of caucusing versus voting on a matter? In other words, let's say if 242 Buckingham came before us, could we say after we close the public hearing, could we say we want to caucus and then come out and vote?
I don't see why not.
I would not recommend doing that.
Guys, come on. This is a public meeting. We don't go and hide and discuss shit behind people's backs. We talk in front of them. That's why we invite them here. That's why we notice it. Let's not go hide. If you guys want to talk about this, 3 of you go meet in a bar after this and talk about it. We don't have to have a quorum to do it. But you can't have secret meetings. You can't have caucuses. We're here to, it's public. It's a zoning meeting. Everybody knows about it. They know what we're going to talk about. There's a printed agenda. And now we're going to sneak off into a back room? Come on.
Well, there is the concept of caucus does exist. I mean, I guess it's primarily when there's 2 parties, but.
The issue is that this is a hot button issue, this 830G. So I think that members, as far as I understand from what Mr. Cater was indicating, he has some legitimate questions and wants to have his questions answered. And the question is, what's the proper forum for him and us to discuss those issues?
Well, we have 2 sort of thoughts in front of us. One is the Regulations Subcommittee is definitely taking it up in the next meeting. People are welcome to join the subcommittee, and your idea of having some kind of a meeting with with an expert to give us some advice. So maybe staff will advise us on the best way to proceed with bringing in some outside support, but the agenda for the next regulation subcommittee will have some effort put into how do we get affordable housing and how do we get 830G in control. So those are 2 things that will come up. Okay. So that's the chair's report and staff report.
None this evening.
Okay, motion to adjourn. So moved. Thank you all.